Hi, everybody, and thank you for coming to my talk today. So a little bit about me. As you've already heard, I'm a researcher at Cambridge University. And so I've been based at this university and in the UK for over 10 years and researching mental health and well-being. And I previously was program director of leading mental health in the workplace. And so today I'll be talking about overcoming traumas. So I think I'm just going to stand here just to get a better glimpse of everybody. So when it comes to trauma and hardships and obstacles, it can be incredibly difficult. But what I would like to point out is that there's this concept in science, which I'm going to talk to you all about today. It's called posttraumatic growth, this growth after trauma. And this growth after trauma, whether you're going through, major crises in life or small difficulties, it can arise in a variety of circumstances. So it can arise if you've gone through a difficult breakup, this growth after the difficulty. It can arise if you've experienced financial struggles, or if you have lost your job, if you've lost somebody close to you as well. It can arise in a variety of situations and after various setbacks. And the key message is that you become a stronger individual after this happens. And there was an individual, so Professor Sally Walker, she was in an airline crash that killed 83 people. She survived it. And Georgia Magazine captured her reflections on this incident. And she talked about this event, and she said, and this is exact evidence of post-traumatic growth. So she said, when I got home, the sky was brighter. I paid attention to the texture of sidewalks. It was like being in a movie, and now everything is a gift. So as you can see, there's this feeling of gratitude, this feeling that you are appreciative of the life that you have now after the difficulty. Hardships can be incredibly distressing. And you can go through a crisis like a breakup, a relationship breakup, or a divorce. You can experience money problems, or maybe an illness. And while this can give rise to negative mental health effects, so for example, you can start to experience anxiety and depression. You can also experience physical health symptoms like headaches, migraines. What can happen is that distress and difficulty can happen at the exact same time as growth. So distress and growth can co-occur. And out of difficult circumstances, positive change can arise. This post-traumatic growth can take place whether you've experienced a small difficulty or something major, as I've said. And many studies have looked at this, various difficulties that people have gone through, and they have shown that people who have experienced house fires, or parents with sick children, people who had a cancer diagnosis, or who experienced disability, all of these people, a number of times post-traumatic growth can arise. And what is happening is that you emerge as a different person. As we go through life, all of us have a set of beliefs and assumptions that ground us. So these make up our worldview. You might believe that life is predictable. Or we have beliefs that that children will outlive their parents. And when something truly devastating happens that shocks us to the core, then this can create an imbalance in our belief system. And we see that in order to keep up with the new reality, we have to revise many of our beliefs and assumptions. So it can be like an earthquake that is taking place. And it's about this internal scaffolding that is being built within us, this internal emotional scaffolding that helps us become more resistant to future shocks. And it's something that oftentimes happens on its own. And the way that I see it is picture concrete all around and all of this rubble after the earthquake. So there's been this devastation. But then after the difficulty, after the earthquake, there's this small green plant that emerges. And that is post-traumatic growth. And what happens is these positive changes arise. So you start to become more appreciative of life. Maybe before the incident, before the crisis and the event, you were taking life for granted. And after the difficulty, you start to become grateful for what you do have in life, whether it's your partner or your health, whatever it is. What is that aspect of life that you are feeling grateful for now? And also, we often start to realize that we need people more than we thought. So we start to develop more meaningful relationships. And for me personally, a few years ago, my mother's cancer returned in an advanced form. And it was an incredibly distressing time. It was difficult to go through that. But what had happened was that I realized in this time that I needed people more than ever. And the bonds that I felt with the world, I felt that there was this strengthening of bonds and connections. The other thing is, with post-traumatic growth, when you go through something tough in life, you also often start to realize that you are stronger than you thought you were. And for some people, they experience a spiritual development, and they start to realize that maybe they would like to tap into spirituality or the sacred sphere more. So all sorts of changes can arise, and the central theme is that you're feeling the pain from the incident, or you're feeling the pain from the past while growing in the present moment. And I want to share with you a quote by Rabbi Counselor Harold Kushner. His thoughts were captured by Judith Viorst in her book Necessary Losses, and he says, so here he is reflecting on the death of his son. His son had died, and he is an example of somebody that experienced this post-traumatic growth. He says that I'm a more sensitive person, a more sympathetic counselor because of Aaron's life and death than I would ever have been without it. And I would give up all of those gains in a second if I could have my son back. If I could choose, I would forego all of the spiritual growth and depth which has come my way because of our experiences, but I cannot choose. So the question is, how do you develop post-traumatic growth? Number one, it is important to allow yourself to feel the emotions. Because what can happen is sometimes you get distressing thoughts or difficult feelings, and you don't want to have them course through your body. You don't want to experience them. So it's tempting to try to block them out, to try to forcefully push them out of our minds. But as Carl Jung used to say, what you resist persists. And whatever you try to forcefully block out often comes back to haunt you like a boomerang. So if you are feeling difficult feelings, allow them to course through you, and processing them is important. And how do we do that? Well, reflecting on what's happened, but also writing things down. And the reason is when we think about things and we have difficult thoughts and we keep everything in our minds, the thoughts can seem vague and it can feel like they're lacking shape. But the minute that you put things down on a piece of paper, the thoughts can start to gain shape. We start to gain clarity. So writing things down and allowing yourself to experience whatever is going through your body, through your mind, experiencing the difficult emotions and the thoughts, that's a first step. And then it's also important, the second thing that I would suggest, talking about it, sharing with other people what you're going through. Having a support network is so important because being embedded in strong supportive networks can be a buffer when we're faced with adversity, a buffer against poor mental health. So talking about it, and support groups are incredibly helpful because when we are part of a support group and we are sharing with other people what we have gone through, and we are hearing back from others how they coped with similar experiences, then it helps us to gain greater insight into what is happening to us. And there's this sharing of perspectives and sharing of beliefs, and we see how other people coped in a similar circumstance. It can also help you to revise your assumptions and some of your beliefs and to rebuild your world back up after that earthquake. And to move forward, it is important to slowly, step by step, give up the old world. It's about giving up our old goals and our old ways of doing things. And this takes time and it takes patience, but it's about building new goals for ourselves and revising our goals in certain instances. And a prime example of this is the pandemic. So if you all remember, at the height of the pandemic, there was this talk of the new normal. All of those changes that were happening and us needing to find a way to cope with the new reality and to build new goals for ourselves. So it is important to find a way to do this. And in the process, as you're experiencing the changes and allowing this growth process to take hold, you start to gain wisdom, and it becomes easier to accept the unknowns and to deal with the big questions. Questions such as, what happens to us after we die, or what is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of being on this earth? It allows you to do this and to be able to cope with the unpredictability of life better. So let's go back to gratitude for a minute because we talked about its importance and the fact that we need to have it in our lives. And there's an exercise that I'd like to share with you. It comes from the University of Pennsylvania. And it's about focusing on what is going well in our days and feeling grateful for that. And the reason for this is so often we think about what went wrong in a week or what went wrong in a day. But what about flipping that around and thinking about what went well? So the exercise is this. And by the way, they have shown, so researchers at this university have shown that if you do this consistently for a month, it lowers depression levels and it boosts levels of happiness. So what you do is every day you write down 3 things that you're grateful for and why they happened. And it doesn't have to be earth-shattering in importance. It can be something small, it can be something major. So to give you a simple example, let's say I am grateful that my sister brought me back home my favorite box of chocolates on her way home from work. So that's what I'm grateful for. That's what went well in my day. And now, why did it happen? It happened. It could be something as simple as I texted her and asked her to do that. Or perhaps she's a kind individual and wanted to surprise me with this. So write down every day, and this is something that I do with people in my coaching practice. I urge them to write down 3 things that they are grateful for every day, and also to think about why they happen and to put it down on a piece of paper. And the last thing, one of the last things that I'd like to share with you, it's a general strategy. It's a strategy for well-being. And as we're going through our daily lives and, we're encountering various levels of stress, it's important to also think about our mood. So whether you're in a good mood or a bad mood, moods are so important. And they actually have a link with self-control. And the more positive emotion that you can bring into your life, the more this can help you when it comes to things like self-control. And if we just backtrack for a second and we're thinking, first of all, what is self-control? Well, self-control is the effort that you apply to think, act, or behave in a certain way. So anytime you do this, anytime you do something on purpose, that's applying self-control. So let's say that you've got a task to do and you feel like quitting, you're working on a report and you feel like quitting, but you force yourself, you push yourself to keep going for another half an hour. That is applying self-control. So anytime when you apply effort to do this, to think or act or behave in a specific way, that's self-control. Which is why in an experiment, when people were given chocolate, so they had the chocolate next to them, and they were asked to complete a hard puzzle experiment. So part of these people were not allowed to indulge in the chocolate. They had to apply self-control to refrain from eating the chocolate. These people ended up doing worse on the hard puzzle than the people who were allowed to eat the chocolate, than the people who didn't have to apply self-control. So the underlying thing is that whenever we apply self-control, we get a little bit more tired. We start to feel depleted. Our willpower starts going down. So that's why the people who weren't allowed to indulge in the chocolate, they ended up doing worse on the hard puzzle experiment. And if we go for a minute to a study that was done by Diane Tice in the US, it's all about self-control and bringing positive emotion into that, bringing our moods into that and finding out the link. And this is a segue into why it's important to boost our positive mood. So what they did in this experiment is they had people come in and do this hand grip strength exercise. And basically what they had to do is they had to press and squeeze these handlebars for as long as they could. And when you do this, you start to feel tired. Your hand muscles get tired. You want to let go, but you don't let go. You're still trying to push yourself to do that. So you're using self-control to do this. And essentially, the point of the first part was to lower people's levels of self-control, to make them feel more tired, more depleted. And then what they wanted to see was if we give people a boost of positive emotion, then does it make a difference? So everybody did this hand grip strength task exercise. They had to squeeze for as long and as hard as they could. They became more tired. And then everybody was divided into 3 groups. One group was given a dose of positive emotion. They watched a comedy clip for a few minutes. So it lifted their moods. Another group was made to watch a sad clip for a short period of time. And a third group, they just rested. So they were just asked to rest. And then everybody came back into the lab, and they had to do this hand grip strength task from the beginning. And what they found was that the people who got that dose of positive emotion, that boost in their mood, they ended up doing better on the hand grip strength exercise than the other people. So that dose of positive emotion can help us to persist on our tasks. It can help us to keep going, even if we're feeling a little bit more tired. And this is so important to keep in mind as we're going about our days and we have task after task to do. How can we get that dose of positive emotion? And why do positive emotions have such a beneficial effect? Well, they tackle, so they boost our levels of endorphins. These are our feel-good chemicals in the body. They lower stress hormone levels. They have a positive effect when it comes to blood pressure. They strengthen our immune system. There are a whole host of benefits when it comes to boosting positive emotion and getting that dose of positive emotion. Giving ourselves a dose of positive emotion, it can not only boost our mood, but as I mentioned earlier, it increases our self-control. And you will be needing that when the school year is starting again and you'll have assignments coming in. You'll be needing to study for tests and exams. So boosting our self-control, making ourselves feel better, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the festival. Thanks again for being here today. Yeah, thanks.